Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are back on the path to the Hipper. And we're on tier 6, which means we are in the Yorck. So let's take a look at our commander. We're running Karl von Mahler with Francesco Membelli and Nikolai Kuznetsov. We are running Beyond Range, Igniter, Punch Through, Fixated, and Fully Packed. For equipment, we are running Aiming Systems Mod 1. We actually have Propulsion Mod on here, but I would probably rather switch this out for steering gears, personally. But we're going to leave it as is, because that's the way I played it in the video. And we also have the Concealment System Mod on this thing. We are fully upgraded. We are running the sonar, and we have our fighter planes. We have a few boosters on. Just because I haven't played the ship since it actually came out, so this is all stuff that I had on it back then. We are running the Alpha Tester flag and the Type 4 camo for the sea detectability and incoming fire dispersion buff. So yeah. For stats, we have survivability 32,600 hit points with a 10% torpedo damage reduction. For artillery, you have 210mm 45 caliber SKL 45s. You get 8 of them, reaching out to 17.5 kilometers, reloading in 11.4 seconds, and they turn 180 degrees in 34.6 seconds. A maximum HE shell damage of 2,900 with a 15% chance of set fires, and a maximum AP shell damage of 5,940. For secondary armament, you have 105mm L65 Doppel C-37s. You have 8 of those, reaching out to 4.7 kilometers, reloading in 3.3 seconds, firing HE with a maximum damage of 1,200 and an 8% chance to set fires. For torpedoes, you have 533mm drillings. You get 12 of those that reload in 68 seconds. They do a maximum of 13,700 damage. They have a detectability of 1.3 kilometers, and the torpedo range is 6 kilometers with a maximum speed of 64 knots. AA defense, you have 20mm flak 38s. You have 4 of those doing 12 damage per second, reaching out to 2 kilometers. Then you have the 20mm flak Zwilling 38s that you have 16 of, doing 34 damage per second, reaching out to 2 kilometers. Then you have the 20mm flak Vierling 38s that you have 16 of, that do 24 damage per second and reach out to 2 kilometers. And then you have the 40mm L56 flak 28s that you have 6 of, doing 45 damage per second, reaching out to 3.5 kilometers. For maneuverability, you have a maximum speed of 33.3 knots, a turning circle radius that is better than the Nuremberg at 650 meters, and a rudder shift time of 8.1 seconds. And again, if you went with the steering gears, you could easily get that down to 6 seconds, and if you chose the second steering gear, you could actually get that even lower. You'd probably be in the 4-second range, 4 to 5 seconds, I would imagine. Okay, detectability is 11.2 by sea, 7 kilometers by air, 2 is always guaranteed, and 7.6 kilometer smoke firing penalty. Armor. This is where you start to actually have a little bit better armor. You still have no armor at the bow. And for once, the belt actually doesn't go all the way to the bow. You only have 16mm bow, meaning if you bow tank any battleship, you are going to regret life. So keep that in mind. You need to open up and try to get them to shoot your belt. You cannot be taking it to the bow. So, with that being said, let's look at the belt armor. So your belt armor, you've got the 25mm and 80mm. And you do have a turtleback armor scheme, somewhat. But again, it's cruiser turtleback armor. Do not rely on this against any sort of battleship or cruiser. The turtleback is not going to save you, even at close range, against pretty much anything. So keep that in mind. You will be absolutely obliterated if you're not careful. 25mm is enough to deal with most 14-inch guns, but not enough to deal with 15 and 16-inch guns and above. So, angled well, you can deal with anything that's not overmatching, because overmatching ignores angle. So, any 15-inch guns and above, if you angle and the shells hit up there, you're going to have a bad time. because they're going to pin right through and they're going to do some pretty significant damage. However, the 80mm belt armor is a different story. If they hit that at any sort of angles, you're going to be able to ricochet pretty much everything that you come up against, if it hits the belt. But you can see that the belt is mostly underwater, meaning getting people to hit that belt is not the easiest thing in the world to do. And the problem with failing to get people to hit the belt is the consequence is you die. These armored cruisers, like the American armored cruisers and the German armored cruisers and the Japanese armored cruisers, really do struggle when they make a mistake, because unlike light cruisers who tend to be overpinned, these heavy cruisers tend to get detonated. The citadels are very easy to punch, and they oftentimes do result in armor, or in the battleship shells that arm and explode in the citadel, which gives you the maximum damage for a battleship. So keep that in mind. It's better in cruisers to just not get hit than it is to take hits, even if you're trying your best to avoid taking damage while taking hits. Okay? Now, the citadel, as you can see, is mostly underwater. It is slightly raised, and it is angled, again, showing that little bit of turtleback that we've talked about. At close ranges, it's supposed to help deflect incoming shells, keep the citadel safe. However, at any sort of range that you're talking about plunging fire, it ends badly. And on top of that, there's not a lot of space between the front of the ship, and that meaning you get overmatched by a battleship, there's a good chance they're going to citadel you through the bow. Same goes for the stern. So kiting away, you also have to be extremely careful, because it's very easy to punch right through the back and get citadel hits. Okay? So keep all of that in mind when you're in these cruisers. Alright. Extended sonar. Sonar's range or duration is increased. It's got that German sonar that's got very good ship detection ranges. And then it's got superior HE penetration, above average HE shell penetration. Again, this owes to the Germans' high explosive having quarter pin mechanic, I believe. Now this is 210 millimeters, so I don't think that it really affects it as much as it does the 150s or 152s, because the 152s have just enough penetration to get through that 32 millimeter mark that you really, really want. I think that the 150s can get through 20 or 37 millimeters of armor, which is why they shred battleships so much, because they can do so much damage to them. Plus, they get the fires. And, of course, armored cruisers, being 203 inches and above, they have enough penetration normally to get through that to begin with. And this still gets better penetration. So, you're not getting a lot of shatters off of anything when you're using the HE. Now, the good news is this also has very good AP. Now, the problem is, back when I played this ship initially, it was awful. Like, this ship used to suck. It's not nearly as bad as it used to be. They've done a lot to buff the ship, especially buffing the armor-piercing capabilities of the ship, not to mention the agility and the shell velocity and all. They've buffed a lot about the Yorck since when it originally came out, as it used to be awful. The DPM on this thing was awful. It had really long flight times. It was very difficult to hit ships at any sorts of ranges. You had to get close, and when you got close, you got your butt kicked. It was not a good ship, but it is a lot better now than it used to be. So, Yorck. Owing to her well-balanced characteristics, this ship surpassed the first-generation cruisers of her time that were subject to the Washington Naval Treaty in terms of armor protection, and light cruisers in terms of artillery power. She was designed in 1923, but apparently never built. So let's take a look at her. Now, I know the camo's a little bit distracting, but she's not a bad-looking ship, and you really do start to see some of the modern characteristics of a good old-fashioned modern cruiser, or at least at the time, modern cruiser. But you get to see a lot of the, I don't know, the stuff that you expect to see, like the bubble turrets and the radar rotating up there, even though this doesn't actually have radar. But, yeah. Anyway, with that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we're going to be on Trident, and we are in the Yorck. And like I said, I didn't really set this thing up the way I really wanted to in terms of the equipment, but because of that, I'm leaving it as is so that we can talk about the way it is currently built and just the overall feel of the ship now compared to what it used to be. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys, this match does not go to plan at all. It's going to come down to, it's going to actually look very familiar because I don't know if you guys watched the Riga video, but it's going to be a lot like the Riga video, honestly. But we're gonna push off to the left side, try to win our side. You guys know that I am a big proponent of winning your side. I don't run from this side all the way over to Charlie to try to win Charlie, okay? My job is I spawn directly across from A. I'm going to try to do the best that I can to support this side and win this side if at all possible. Now, like I said, when I originally played the Yorck, I hated this ship. It's been a long time since I've played this ship, but I really hated the 210mm guns. I always felt like they were very lackluster in terms of overall like potential firepower. But as you're about to see, we're going to start off by shooting at the North Carolina. But they are relatively accurate, even at range. And on top of that, they do pack a punch. I mean, the HE is pretty good. We get just about 1,000 damage out of that first salvo. No fire, unfortunately. But knowing that there's a North Carolina, knowing that there's a King George heading this direction, I can't engage them directly. I have to kind of lead them on a bit of a run here. But I'm also going to run in and do the exact same thing that I did in the Riga video here. I always do this. I try to drive my ship using the freaking mini-map. And the mini-map is not accurate. Look at that accuracy, though. Speaking of accurate, that is beautiful. Exactly where you want. Right into that superstructure, getting a solid hit. And we get the fire that we wanted, and they immediately damage con it. But then I start getting the land ho warning, and of course, I run into the island. And the reason I run into the island is I'm using the mini-map to try to turn my ship around the island, and I almost always cut it too close. Fortunately for me, these guys aimed at me while I was still moving and fired their guns while I was still moving, so the aiming system of the game put the shells into the island, because the aiming system of the game is incredibly stupid and doesn't actually help you most of the time. It actually screws you over more often than not. But we have the Sean Yang here. He's engaging our, I believe it's a Moss that we have, a German destroyer here. And this is not a good move for him, because he's going to get ripped apart. It's pretty obvious that he's spotted. We managed to get moving just in time to avoid what would have been an absolute pounding from one of those battleships, for sure. But we haven't been able to land a very good hit on this Sean Yang yet, but we're trying. And of course we miss. I don't know what it was about this particular destroyer. He wasn't doing anything to avoid the shells, but my shots kept missing him for some reason. But with that being said, we have the King George here, and I noticed when I fired at him, I didn't get detected. Now, obviously, it's not going to stay that way, because eventually these guys are going to come out from behind the island, and I'm going to have to start getting punched, or at least shot at. So we need to keep ourselves mobile so that we can avoid as many shells as possible. Now, obviously, getting a shot at that King George, we're doing significant damage to the King George. And I'm hoping to set some fires. The North Carolina's damage con is probably back by now. So I'm not too worried about starting a fire on him right away. We do finally get the fire on the King George. He immediately extinguishes it. And so I am salivating, because I know that if I can set another fire, then he's going to burn for quite a while. So I'm going to do my best to try to get at least one fire on this guy to get it ticking over time. And then I'm going to turn my attention towards that North Carolina and do the same thing. But look at the accuracy, and there's a double fire. Perma double fire right there is exactly what we needed. So now we look back at the North Carolina. The King George actually shoots at us, and we're able to avoid those shells. He missed pretty badly. He is shooting armor piercing, showing that he does know what he's doing. We get a fire on the North Carolina, and I believe once again, he does put that fire out immediately. And now I'm almost at the edge of the map, so I've got to start turning myself back in. But you can see as we're getting these plunging fire shots from these long ranges, that the shells are doing a lot better than they were when we were, say, 12, 13 kilometers away. They're actually penetrating that deck armor and doing penetration damage with HE. I turn in and I actually get hit here pretty hard. He gets 2 full penetrations and an overpen, I'm assuming. But he did like 7,000 damage to us in that salvo. We do get another fire that's a perma-fire on the North Carolina. So we've got 2 fires on 2 different ships that are burning. North Carolina, or King George's fire is out now, so we got to turn our attention back to him now that we have the North Carolina on a perma-fire. We want to turn our attention back towards the King George and do the same thing. We're not getting a very good chance to use the armor piercing in this one, just due to the fact that these guys are both bow tanking us, and the armor piercing would be doing basically nothing. I mean, sure, if you hit your superstructure, you're going to get some damage there. You could potentially do some damage with plunging fire, but I don't think that the armor piercing from the Germans has enough penetration angle to penetrate the deck at these kinds of ranges. I could be wrong, but I don't think it does. Because one of the props of the American cruisers, well, the Americans in general, they have improved penetration angles. So with my American cruisers, I know that if I use armor piercing, especially with the heavy cruiser, I can use armor piercing at these sorts of ranges and do a really good job of getting penetrations. But I don't know about the Germans and whether they can do it or not. But you can see, I know I'm smelling blood in the water. This man has gotten absolutely punched by that battleship. I was hoping to finish him off, but the Synop ends up finishing him off for us. Now, here's where things go horribly wrong. Now, our team has gotten their butts kicked. It's just the 3 of us that held our side. Like, we did our job. We held our side. And this Iowa right here, I'm feeling pretty confident that I'm going to be able to do something about this Iowa. He fires his guns. We start to turn in. Look at that accuracy from that Iowa. My God. Thank goodness that I was able to avoid that, because that could have been real bad. But here, I don't want to get closer to this Iowa, because it's only going to end in heartache for me if I do. So we get a fire on a superstructure here. You'll notice there's a smoke screen right next to that Iowa, which is real unfortunate because it means that this Iowa is going to have will to rebuild active, which is real bad news for me, because he's going to be basically unkillable unless I can get like 3 fires on him. He gets another shot here, catches me off guard a little bit. I am changing course, hoping for the best. He does get all over pins on me, which is what I was expecting. I was trying to take that as flat as I could so that we don't get the full penetrations. And you can see I do have a fire. I'm trying to hit the superstructure again, set that second fire, because he's only got 1 fire on the superstructure. He doesn't go down. The battleship isn't managing to get any good hits on him anymore. And we do get the second fire. Now, this guy I thought was dead. He actually gets his damage control back, and that's real unfortunate, because now he is not only on damage control, he's not burning twice, he's going to survive, and we just got smashed by the other battleship that was over there in the middle. And our destroyer has put himself in a position where he's getting absolutely crapped on, which is real unfortunate because now he's dead. So I know that I can't kill the Iowa the way the Iowa is currently. He's gonna out-heal my damage output. So I've got to try to kill the Friesland. So I start focusing the Friesland. I start turning out, trying to avoid the other battleship shells that he's shooting at me. And I know if I can kill the Friesland, who doesn't have will to rebuild, that I can stop the will to rebuild for the Iowa and be able to get that. But unfortunately, that guy gets the best salvo of his life and gets all of his shells to drop on target from both of these guys. The second shot from the Iowa, I had pretty much given up on trying to dodge. I didn't have any hit points left. But we did get another fire on him. Unfortunately, not able to finish him off. He was able to get another heal off, too. And that just leaves our poor Synop to go up against 5 enemy ships, 2 of which are destroyers. But, yeah, we did everything we could. I feel like we played a pretty solid game. Unfortunately, our team lets us down on the right side, getting completely overrun. We dealt with the 3 ships that were on our side. We won our side. And at the end of the day, you can't win them all. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. Now, here's where the Synop makes a mistake. He fires at the Iowa here, who he's not going to kill. The Iowa's bow tanking him. And he's got a mains that's about to come around the corner broadside on in front of him. Unfortunately, he's not going to be loaded in time to do anything about it. The Friesland is out there trying to finish him off with his guns. You can see the Friesland shattering most of his shells. He doesn't have his guns ready to shoot the mains, and the mains comes around the corner and just starts to pound him. And Friesland actually gets the kill, even though I don't think he really deserved it there. But the mains did the majority of the damage, and the Friesland gets the credit. But we come in second. Moss did a good job. The Synop did a pretty decent job. But again, the team kind of let us down in that one. So what do you guys think? If you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.